This time last year, for example, we brought you the story of Harry Miller. Harry happened to be here in Australia to see his wonderful daughter, so we got him into the studio where he told us the horrifying story of how he had been harassed by the British police because of a couple of satirical limericks he had tweeted poking fun at transgenderism. Terrifyingly, the police officer investigating Harry said that although he had not committed a crime, the police needed to check his thinking. They turned up at his workplace, accusing him of a non-crime hate incident, which is as sinister and as Orwellian as it gets. Determined not to be trampled underfoot, Harry took Humberside Police and the College of Policing to Britain's High Court. And on Friday, he won. It's late on Saturday night over in the UK now, and Harry Miller joins us live. Harry,
hi guys.
welcome back to Outsiders, mate. Congratulations from Rita, James and I. Congratulations, mate. What a fantastic victory. Tell us all about it.
Oh man, it's been a year since I was on the show last year, right? I mean, when I was on the show with you last year, I didn't know what it was that I tweeted other than that one limerick. And it took me until June it took me, before the police finally revealed what it was I tweeted. Now, of course, I'd worried that maybe I'd had one too many sherbets and I'd said punch a tranny. It turns out not at all. What I'd done, my crimes that got involved a assistant chief constable, an inspector and a lowly PC gull, was I'd said things like, I was assigned mammal at birth, but I identify as a fish. Don't misspecies me. So that apparently was a hate crime and a sure signifier that I was about to commit a terrible sort of crime. The kind of crime that led to Stephen Lawrence, a young black lad, years and years ago, getting stabbed at a bus stop. That was the level that they thought that me doing satirical humour about fish and mammals, if they hadn't intervened, I was definitely about to go stab somebody.
Harry,
So, there you go. So we decided that this is nonsense.
They harassed you. They turned up at your workplace. They said, oh, no, you haven't committed a crime, but you have committed a hate incident. So there's a whole new legal framework there. Tell us what the last year has been like.
Well, then I put in a subject access request and found out about this. What record had they got? And get this, OK? My name appeared on a crime report marked as a non-crime crime. Did you get that? A non-crime crime. It's true. It was a non-crime crime. It says crime report at the top, and then it says offence, trans hate, and then it says suspect, Harry Miller, and then down in the T's and C's at the bottom it says crime, non-crime. Now, if that's not bizarre enough and absolute Orwellian doublespeak at its finest, it turns out that there have been 120,000 of these non-crime crimes in the past 5 years, and that's serious, of course, but it gets even more serious when it turns out that each of these may appear on a criminal records check if somebody's applying for a job in certain industries like teaching kids or schools or etc. So that non-crime crime can appear and stop your career dead.
Now,
we've exposed it.
You had an enormous win at the High Court. The Justice, and I'd like you to just tell us some of his comments, because he was very, very strong in condemning this harassment for you expressing views that are not in any way unlawful, but maybe a very tiny percentage of people might find offensive. And in your case, there was, one or two people who actually complained that triggered this entire police...
One
person.
One person. One person, yeah. One person, yeah.
So one person...
Yeah, I mean, you can understand, can't you, why? Yeah. Why saying, I was assigned mammal at birth, but I identify as fish. You can see why the police would get involved in that, because I don't know about in Australia, but that seems pretty serious to me, if I'm honest. So, yeah, we took them to the High Court. The judge was, I would say, fairly unequivocal in his judgment. He described Humberside as being like, what was the words he used? Oh, that's right, the Gestapo and the Stasi and the Checker, and indicated that they were trying to turn the good country of Britain into an Orwellian society, and he was having none of it. Thank God.
Harry, you've had quite a lot of press coverage. Spiked. Brendan O'Neill's excellent magazine has come out and said we need more Harry Millers. Melanie Phillips has written.
Honestly. Yeah, if you knew me, you know that the world does not need more Harry Millers. It definitely doesn't.
Well, I don't know, Harry. I don't know about that. I think we need you back in Australia, Harry, because in Australia
it needs fewer and better Harry Millers. Seriously.
But this is being seen in Britain quite rightly, and I think it should be in Australia and elsewhere, as a very important blow against the ever-increasing powers of the police to head down this politically correct path of offence. Rita referred to, who you've offended or what you've done. The law is increasingly heading into this area. This is the first time that someone has put up their hand and said, no more of this nonsense. So you are a modern-day hero, Harry. Make no mistake about that. How are you being received in Britain? Your victory.
Well, people love it. People want a hero, don't they? Everything from Samson slaying the Philistines with the jawbone of an ass, right the way through to Bruce Willis tearing around the Nagatomi building in his white top. People want a hero. They do. They want a hero, and hopefully that's what we've done. That's what we've done. We've stood up and said, "You're not doing this. You're not doing this." We operate under a principle of law. In Britain, we are free up until the point that the law says no. And the law didn't say no. It was a bunch of policies that said no. And Humberside Police said we were following the policies. And the people that wrote the policies says, yes, you were. And the judge said, yes, you were. But you still broke the law. In other words, their policies were about as useful as a chocolate fire guard.
But Harry, there's a serious side to all of this too. I mean, this is great and it's fantastic you've had this spectacular win. But the point is, for all of these thousands and thousands of non-crime crimes that are being investigated, this is time the police should be spending on other things. You have got, out-of-control knife crime in London. You have got stories now that the Rotherham police had decided not to investigate all sorts of actual crimes for reasons of political correctness. The real issue here seems to be a police force that has completely lost its way in terms of what it's supposed to do in terms of protecting people from real crimes. And as a taxpayer, wouldn't you find that just utterly offensive beyond even just your own case?
No, it's entirely offensive, but what's happened is the police force has been captured. It's been captured by political lobby groups who are pressing this trans nonsense. And now we've got an organisation called Stonewall in the UK, and their description of transphobia is refusing to accept a person's trans identity. But then they define trans as you're anything you want to be. So I can be a fish, I can be a mammal, I can be made of smoke, I can be bigender, I can be agender, I can be two spirits. And if anybody doesn't agree with that and accept it entirely, then they've got a case for calling the police. And the police have been captured. They have been absolutely captured. They don't know what's hit them. I've set up this organisation called We Are FairCop, and we have absolutely hit them, and we are going through this country now, and we are going to be ripping that rainbow-coloured nonsense out of the police force. Yeah, you heard it here first.
But it goes even beyond the police force. You've got the Labor Party now, who's one of their leadership candidates, basically wants to expel from the party anybody who is guilty of what she calls transphobic hate speech, and that includes things like if you think there's only two genders, so things that are fairly mainstream views.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they've all signed this thing called the Trans Pledge, and it's absolute nonsense. It demands that you reject a biological notion of sex and embrace gender identity. If you became a member of FairCop, you couldn't be a member of the Labour Party because we are a hate group. How about that? That's absolutely amazing, isn't it? Now, that is scary, but, the Labour Party in this country are as bonkers as the Labour Party in your country. What's scary? It's got to be said. What's really scary is that the police force are also signing this pledge.
Yeah, no,
We've got pictures of police officers, senior officers, signing a pledge to Stonewall. Now, we don't know the wording of this pledge because they deny that they're signing pledges, except if you're going to deny something, don't brag about it on your Instagram feed. That kind of thing, you know. That is the saving. That is the saving grace, is that they are some level of dumb.
Harry, in Australia, things are ramping up here, so we might need to get you out here to help us. But there's a law, for example, in Queensland, which looks like coming in. I won't go into the details because it's quite complicated. But basically, if someone tries to interfere in the process of a young person deciding to transition, then they could wind up in jail. There are serious penalties. We've also seen a report in The Australian last week that there is essentially an epidemic of transgenderism. If you look at the stats around the world, but certainly in Australia, where massive increases, 1,000%, these sorts of figures of increases in the number of people, young people going down the path of transitioning. I've always said there will be a royal commission or some kind of royal commission in 20 years' time into this, because I think what is happening is absolutely outrageous. There are young lives which are being destroyed. How much will FairCop become a pivotal organisation in the fight, if you like, in the UK for transgenderism versus whatever you might see as the opposite?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, we're working with some fantastic organisations like Safe School Alliance, we're like Transgender Trend, and we've got our first detransitioner who is suing the Tavistock Centre, which is the NHS Gender Identity Clinic, because no care is taken whatsoever. They just chop bits off and stick bits on with no thought whatsoever that these are young people whose bodies are being irreparably damaged. And they need to go to prison. They need to go to prison. They need to be lined up and judged and sent to prison, definitely. And FairCop, we're helping do that.
Rita?
Well, I just wanted to... You've had this enormous victory and we're all celebrating that. It's a great day for free speech. But just tell us, when the cops showed up, when they were harassing you on the phone, when they showed up to your workplace, how that felt to feel like you were having your very, I would say, mainstream thoughts scrutinised and deemed hateful and perhaps a crime or a non-crime crime.
Well, it was all absolutely nonsense, because I knew in my heart of hearts that I'd not done anything wrong. I knew I hadn't. But of course, they didn't reveal what the tweets were to me for several months. So during that time, you do wonder when they finally did come through, months later, I read through them like, you have got to be kidding me. One tweet, okay, get this. One tweet was simply this. Are you ready for it?
Trigger warning, yes, go for it.
That was it.
Huh?
H-U-H, question mark, was deemed transphobic hate.
Oh dear.
Seriously, you think I'm kidding? Now, I don't know what I was saying her to, because they redacted the comment beneath it, which I'd said her. So, but yeah, her.
So
I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I just committed, I don't know, 3 or 4 hate crimes, long crimes just then. I'm a serial crime committer.
Growing up in England and reading George Orwell, did you ever think you would find yourself that Britain would become this sort of nation? Did you ever envisage that as a young man?
No, mate, not at all. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I don't look good in a tinfoil hat. I just couldn't believe it. But you know what? When it happens to you and then you start looking and you can't look away, you then have a choice to make. Do I just crack on with my life, or do I do something about it? And what I figured was, there's a lot of women who have gone before me. And I've looked at them as inspirations and thought, okay, they're up doing it. I need to stand up to the plate and, bat on, crack on, and just... Fight back, man. Fight back.
Harry Miller, so glad to have you on Outsiders. Your daughter in Australia, you must come back and see her very soon, and you'll be on Outsiders when you do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Daisy, I love you, mate.
Thanks, Harry Miller. And what a great story there for Outsiders and for Harry Miller. Congratulations.